Hey there, internet friends. Welcome back to That D Plus Show. Welcome back. Happy New Year. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy cycle. It's, you know, what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. Today we're going to be talking about the Doctor Who 60th anniversary / Christmas specials, the first Doctor Who things on Disney Plus. And joining me today for that conversation, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Allons-y.
Allons-y indeed. So we talked about this, I think, a little bit at the tail end of it wouldn't have been Ernest, because I don't think we were all on for Ernest. One of our episodes, not before the break, we talked about the fact that you, me, and Logan had all been watching independently of one another the Doctor Who specials. This would have been before the holiday special. And Logan was interested in joining us, but could not due to life things happening out in California. His partner moving out to join him as he goes into the second semester of law school. So it's just Cam and I for this one, as longtime Whovian fans and whatnot. It's a fun opportunity to get to talk Doctor Who on that D Plus show. We're going to be talking the Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder, the Giggle, and the Church on Ruby Road. Before we dive into kind of all the general housekeeping-y stuff, Cam, kind of what's your history with Doctor Who?
My history with Doctor Who is there was this old TV channel called G4 back in the day.
Yeah.
And when G4, when I first discovered it,
old channel that's like, back in the day when it was black and white TV and whatnot. Yeah, G4.
Yeah.
Admittedly, G4 has closed twice since.
Yeah. That's kind of why it's like, yeah. Back during their first run, they were putting out the BBC broadcasted season, series 1 technically, but at the 9th Doctor with Christopher Eccleston. Immediately fell in love with it. Thought it was so weird. Like, it was so weird. It was like B-movie schlocky, like horror / sci-fi as a TV show. I'll never be more impressed than I was when I thought I understood what the show was. I was like, oh, he's like some sort of like detective or something, because he has this thing that he's showing off to people. And then I realized, oh, it's blank.
Mm-hmm.
Fell into the rabbit hole was the internet at the time. During the boom of the first real US boom of Doctor Who with David Tennant, prior to the second one that happened during the regeneration with Matt Smith, I was part of that big initial wave of people who fell super into it.
Mm-hmm.
Started watching a ton, like people who were pulling up like old archives of like BBC, because it was BBC, so it was public broadcasting in Britain, which means it was like essentially like free to pull, free to use, as long as you weren't like selling it or broadcasting it yourself. And so finding these old archives of old episodes and like really going through it and really finding like this entire library of literature, the literaries, that's kind of like the code for them in the the Whovian like lore nerds. But the literaries, whether it's like short stories, books, novellas, whatever, like however long they were, it's just a treasure trove of really cool, awesome sci-fi lore that as an American never was exposed to. I have no doubt in my mind that if it had ever been like an American, like come over the seas, in a bigger way, other than like when they tried to do it in the 90s.
I was going to say like the Paul McGann 8th Doctor TV movie that was trying to reboot the series that did not go anywhere.
Yeah. I think if they had tried to, like if it had been a staple here in the US, I have no doubt like I would have grown up with it, because my dad is, it's funny. My dad does not come off like when you meet him and everything, he doesn't come off as like a big sci-fi guy. And that's not like one of his passions or his interests, but like my dad's seen every single like Star Trek. Like my dad is the one who introduced my brother and I to Star Wars. Like all my nerdy stuff, I actually get from my dad. My mom's super into sports and like was a cheerleader and student. Like my dad played the tuba and was the leader and like captain of the marching band. Like my dad was a gigantic nerd. But he also I love my dad, but I love my dad, and he's the one who introduced a lot of the nerd stuff to me growing up. And it was never like, hey, Cam, come check out this thing. It was always just like he was watching it. Like growing up, it was a staple that at around 6 o'clock or not 6 o'clock, 6:30, we would watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. The old reruns would pull up on Channel 6, and it was the best. I love this level of, you know, the people inside of it take it so seriously, but it is like that kind of B level sci-fi, and there's so much of it, and it's so great. And I went into it when we did that Nerdy Site show with Logan. And it's like I kind of like shocked both of you with like how like you're like I should have been surprised. But I really do love just the deep lore of Doctor Who. Like I have my favorite doctors. But like I'm also like a big First Doctor fan, which is weird for people. But that's because I really love the kind of like prose and a lot of the written stuff about the First Doctor. And like Fourth and Fifth Doctor and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff. Yeah, and I think the thing that I'll finally like finish up on like my history with it is Doctor Who is one of those things that if you get whatever you put into it, if you want to get deep, heavy into the lore of this thing, there is a treasure trove just waiting for you just to like dive into. If you just want to watch the modern stuff, that's all there for you too. And like you'll never be too out of sorts. It's so great for there to be on such a transitional lens of if you're a big fan, you'll get something out of it. If you're a new fan, you'll get something out of it. If you're like a brand new baby fan with this is your first Doctor, like congratulations, he's already amazing. But like there's so much that you can get out of this, and it's so great.
Yeah, I got into it somewhere during the first David Tennant run. I was probably watching like day after or whatever on like PBS for a good handful of episodes. But mostly like most of my time with it was watching on like the DVDs that I picked up, like the DVD box sets and stuff. And I went back and watched the Eccleston and kind of like basically got all caught up as I was going through the Tennant era. It's always funny. I had like my best friend at the time, Brooke, she and I like fell into Doctor Who completely independently of one another at pretty much the same time. And then we would just kind of like nerd out about the latest episodes and whatnot. We went and saw like the 50th anniversary together at the AMC downtown Phoenix with a whole bunch of our Whovian friends.
That was a big fun time.
I've never watched any of like the classic Who, but like during my kind of first foray, I got like super into like the history of the show and the different doctors and all that stuff. I have a very light, loose Tom Baker cosplay in that I have a hat and scarf that I can bust out occasionally and have done for like Halloween.
Yeah. And when you're clean shaven, you can pull off a very convincing Tom Baker.
Yeah.
So
my old car before my car accident back in like 2020, like right before the pandemic, I nicknamed that car Sexy when I bought it back in like it was 2014, I think 2013.
But that's you only called it Sexy when nobody else was around, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good moment.
So and then the other like fun little bit that I always think back on like my Doctor Who love is I fell into it while I was doing a production of The Mousetrap, the Agatha Christie play, where I was playing Detective Trotter. And for those that don't know, The Mousetrap is set in an English, homestead caught during a blizzard storm. Detective Trotter shows up. There's been a murder and Detective Trotter is there to, or there have been murders in the area and Detective Trotter is there to like help prevent or investigate or something like that. And we didn't have like a dialect coach. This was over at Hale Theater in Gilbert. And we didn't have a dialect coach, so we were kind of all left to our own devices to pick up our English accents.
So the slew of English voices that you all had.
Quite a variety. And mine was being driven largely by David Tennant. but there were some very specific things where, as I would say a line, I could hear it slip into Scottish David Tennant, not Dr. David Tennant.
Yes.
But it worked perfectly because Detective Trotter is hiding a secret and he's putting on airs and he's not real, like that's not really who he is, kind of thing. So the fact that like, oh, just those little moments where I justified as the mask slipping or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like, I always think back on that of just like, I was using David Tennant, who is not, British, for his British accent. So the fact that occasionally I would slip into a little bit of Scottish for like a word or two, was just a fun little flavor to that character and my memories of that. I think, yeah, we talked a few years back when we talked about like Doctor Who on HBO and stuff like that, and the Jodie Whittaker Doctor, that like I think we'd kind of a little bit fallen out of or weren't like kind of keeping up with as much. And I had like a run there where I just kind of like binged through all of the Whittaker stuff at that point. I fell off during Peter Capaldi.
Same, yeah.
There were a couple stories during that era. In particular, the ones that come to mind are the moon is secretly an egg, and I, as the doctor, can't choose women. All the women here, you have to choose. I was like, all right, this is a little on the nose. And then like a couple episodes later, it's like the world is now, overgrown with a forest, and it was just like very on the nose with like the politics of the episode and not deftly handled at all, I think.
No.
So I was like, all right, this is not vibing for me. So I kind of bounced off for a while. I went back and watched the Jodie Whittaker stuff. I've not watched all of Flux. So there's still like a handful of episodes there, and then kind of the some of the specials and stuff leading up to. Like I watched the transformation back into Tennant, back into 14, I guess. But I've not seen like the precursor episode that came from, and I've not seen like a few of the things leading up to it. So I've got like a little bit of a gap there in New Who. But yeah, it is fun to just be able to like go back to. After watching these, I pulled up HBO Max and just kind of watch a lot. I've been watching like a lot of Tennant and Smith episodes because those are like my doctors, I think.
I think that's fair. I also in that same line. You never forget your first doctor. Technically speaking, Christopher Eccleston was my first doctor, but I was very much just like not invested in the show until Tennant showed up.
Yeah. For me, like Eccleston would have been my first doctor too, because I was like, I'm going to start from the reboot kind of thing and move forward. And at that point, I knew Christopher Eccleston from like a one-off episode of Heroes where he played Claude, the Invisible Man, and I really liked that episode and that character.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm like, cool, I'm in. And then, yeah, he's very goofy. I was never the biggest fan of Rose. I like a lot of the other companions better.
Oh, I'm such a big fan of Rose.
And I get maybe it's just that like I like Rose better when David Tennant shows up than I do the Rose Christopher Eccleston chemistry.
The age
which
gap
feels a lot of that's driven by the age gap, and it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah. It is very much like he is.
It's not a lot better when it's David Tennant, but it's a little better.
And I think part of the problem is the fact that like Chris Eccleston feels like a very very older person playing young, versus David Tennant being on the younger side of things playing young as well. Like, yeah. And that fits. Rose is young when Eccleston starts, and it very much more is it's hard to buy into the romance with Eccleston. Because not just the age gap, but also because like their relationship starts off far more like paternal, far more I don't know, paternal's fraternal, just far more like older brother or parent or uncle or like
I would say there's a paternal thing there, especially with a lot of the first season kind of grappling with the fact that Rose's dad is dead and all that stuff. Yeah. And so she is absolutely filling a void in her life.
Yes.
Because also she has Mickey. So it's not that like there's the romantic thing there at first. But it felt weird.
It isn't until like they starts kind of like teasing into the romance. I will say, that's also when you get introduced to Captain Jack Harkness.
Yeah.
Like you get a lot of like really great things under Eccleston that I just think get underappreciated because people are quick to get through him to get to the Tennant era. That being said, I do like the Tennant era more. There is something about seeing like somebody who thinks dressing posh but with like kicks is cool. As a like a avowed like Chuck's fan, like as an avowed I'm trying to think of like their actual technical Converse, yeah. I was like, what's their actual name? Not Kicks or Chucks. Yeah, as a big time, long time Converse fan, like going into Converse post, I had the classic black and white Chucks, post, like my Vans skater shoe era. I never transitioned back into like sneakerhead stuff. And so like the entire sneakerhead phenomenon has passed me by, but I got way into Chucks to the point where I literally have like it's not custom, but it's a less common black on black Chucks set that I like to rock. Okay. So, but yeah, so seeing him do that, be dressed in a suit with a long coat, but then like some Chucks, and it's like, that's cool.
Yeah. I definitely had like a bow ties are cool phase.
I did not especially bow tie because as a kid I had a bow ties are cool phase, and like as I got older, definitively bow ties are not cool.
Yeah, bow ties are cool in the right settings, and for me, the right settings were theater galas that I was working at because of working at Phoenix Theater at the time. But yeah. So yeah, there's a little bit of our fun kind of history with the show and kind of all that fun stuff. So diving into kind of the more general that D Plus-ness of this episode, why'd we pick it? Because Doctor Who is on Disney Plus now, and will be kind of moving forward. The first real, these being the first kind of real Disney involvement on these. Obviously, if you're over in the UK, they're still on BBC, and there's the Whoniverse, full app over there, kind of thing. Here stateside, we've got them just on Disney Plus now. Our history lesson: these were originally released. These 4 episodes originally released between November 25th and December 25th, 2023. They have a runtime between 54 minutes and 61 minutes. In the Doctor Who timeline of things, we had Series 13, Flux, which was 6 episodes that ran between October and December 2021. Then we had the 2022 specials, Eve of the Daleks, January 1st, 2022, Legend of the Sea Devils, April 17th, and Power of the Doctor, October 23rd, 2022. So those I haven't seen among most of the Flux. I think I watched like the first episode or 2 of the Flux. And then we had kind of a little gap there of until the 2023 specials. The Star Beast debuted on November 25th, Wild Blue Yonder a week later, December 2nd, and The Giggle a week after that, December 9th. And then we had the debut, or the first full episode for the new Doctor, Shudigatwa, on the Church on Ruby Road, December 25th, 2023. The first holiday special in a good, 4 or 5 years, I think. As a result. And then Church on Ruby Road technically is the start of Series 14 / Season 1, I think. Kind of Disney's kind of pushing it's a brand new season structure thing. But that is slated to be 8 episodes, 8 more episodes, starting circa May 2024. They haven't landed on a firm date yet, but the Who Confidential or whatever, the behind the scenes Doctor Who said they're returning in May, and they have 1 episode of that for pretty much every episode of Doctor Who as their behind the scenes stuff. So that's pretty much when it's assumed Doctor Who will be returning. Our roll call here, we have 4 directors, 1 for each episode. Rachel Talalay directed The Star Beast. She has done 8 episodes of Doctor Who, starting with Darkwater. Then she also directed Tank Girl, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, which was a Friday the 13th movie in 1991. So, spoilers, it wasn't The Final Nightmare. She did an episode of Sherlock. She's also done 6 episodes of the CW Flash and 4 episodes of Riverdale for the CW. Thomas Kingley directed Wild Blue Yonder. This was his first Doctor Who credit, with various other credits going back to 2009. A lot of these, I will say, much like when I've done other kind of non-North American centered things. A lot of their credits are like, oh, I'm sure these are like BBC or UK shows or something like that, but I can't speak to them. I don't know what the popular ones are or anything like that. So
Yeah.
there might be a lot of those kinds of credits of like, they've done a lot, but I don't know what any of those things were. So yes, Tom Kingsley, lots of credits going back to 2009, but none of them jumped out as like this made it across the pond to me kind of thing.
Especially because they usually do short series. And so they'll go through like in a year of television, they'll go through like 30, 40 shows.
There were a lot that I was seeing, especially when we get into like the actors where it's like, oh, they were in a lot of like 4-episode series things. And it's like, come on, they went a completely different route than American syndication of 22-episode seasons and stuff.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Hey, prestige TV has started kind of veering more their path. So, who knows?
No. I mean, HBO's been following that model for like what? Like,
I mean, most of their time. Yeah. It's not TV, it's HBO.
Yep. God. And then that dumbass CEO dropped the prestige name and is calling it Max.
Yeah. Chania Button directed The Giggle. This was her first Doctor Who episode, but she has all other credits going back to 2011. I think that was a she. I apologize if I mistook that. Mark Tonderai, our final director for The Church on Ruby Road, did 3 episodes of Doctor Who, including The Ghost Monument and Rosa from the Jodie Whittaker era in 2018. He's also done 4 episodes of Gotham and 6 episodes of Lock and Key, among other things. Our writers, this is notable in that this is the return of Russell T Davies. Sorry, I always said Davies, and then listening to Who Culture, a lot of videos on Who Culture recently, which is the Doctor Who spinoff from What Culture. I've been corrected, and it's also how I learned how to pronounce Ncuti Gatwa's name properly. But yes, it's just Russell T Davies, not Davies, not the Americanized version of that.
Oh yeah, no. The whole thing, the reason why people got that confused about that and like misspelled it for so many years is because
it's spelled that way.
Yeah,
it's just not pronounced that way.
Yeah,
it's a British thing.
Yeah.
But yes, Russell T Davies, who originally kicked off New Who back with the Christopher Eccleston era before handing off the reins to Stephen Moffat during Matt Smith's run. Stephen Moffat took point during Matt Smith and I believe most of, if not all of, the Peter Capaldi era, and then
it was all Peter Capaldi.
Chibness, Christopher Chibness, no, it was something Chibness, took point during the Jodie Whittaker era, and now the reins have come back to RTD. He wrote all 4 of these episodes. Other things he'd worked on previously: Queer as Folk, Casanova, the original run of Doctor Who, Torchwood, and the Sarah Jane Adventures. We also have credits, and unfortunately I didn't think to pull other things they've worked on, but the Star Beast story originally started as a comic story of the Doctor, and that story was by Pat Mills and Dave Gibbons, so they are credited on the Star Beast episode as kind of like the impetus,
the concept for
that. Yeah. Our cast of characters for the Doctors and Companions. We have David Tennant returning as the Doctor. He was the 10th Doctor from 2005 to 2010. He's also been in Broadchurch, Jessica Jones, DuckTales, Good Omens, and Ahsoka, among many, many other things, I'm sure. But yes, and then also outside of the 2005 to 2010 range, of course, he came back for the 50th anniversary, the Day of the Doctor special, alongside Matt Smith and John Hurt's War Doctor. And then we also have the return of Catherine Tate as Donna Noble, who was on Doctor Who between 2006 and 2008, playing that same role. Other projects she'd done, The Catherine Tate Show, The Office, and DuckTales. And also, I just want to give a special shout out to the incredible stage production of Much Ado About Nothing that featured David Tennant and Catherine Tate as Benedict and Beatrice. It is one of the best adaptations of that film that I've seen. And Logan and I watched it and I think we just did an episode of that Nerdy Site show about it during the pandemic, because it was one of those theaters put a whole bunch of their stuff online for people to watch while theaters were closed, so you could watch it I don't remember if it was Royal Shakespeare Theatre or it was one of the UK theaters, so you could go find it out there on the internets. But yes, very good version of that. We get the debut of the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, who's taking over 2023 till question mark. He's also been in projects like Sex Education, as well as last year's big breakout hit and That Nerdy Site's movie of the year, Barbie, as one of the many Kens. And are debuting Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday in the final episode of this bunch. The new companion for the Doctor. She's done a bunch of Coronation Street, which, as I understand it, is basically a UK soap opera, because she's been on that show for 3 years and had 140 some odd episodes.
Oh, yeah, it must be.
It's the complete opposite of like, oh, we only do 4 episode series. It's like Coronation Street, EastEnders are the like, those are the crazy long running shows that have hundreds and hundreds of episodes and seasons and whatnot.
Yeah. Full on Days of Your Lives on the air for 18 years type thing. Yeah.
Among this, the rest of our kind of cast of characters across these episodes have kind of broken them out into the Noble Temple family, Unit, and the baddies. So among the Noble Temple family, we have the debuting Yasmin Finney as Rose Noble, who previously was in Heartstopper. We have Carl Collins returning as Sean Temple, reprising his role from The End of Time Part 1 and 2, the original David Tennant finale episodes. He's also been in Attack the Block, and he was in The Flash last year, the movie The Flash. Remember who he was in that? I think like, miscellaneous guard number blah 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 or something like that. No, he was Barry's dad's lawyer.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
I didn't have that here, but I remembered like what the credit was and being like, oh yeah, okay, there he goes. I can kind of pinpoint that from that terrible movie. We have Jacqueline King returning as Sylvia Noble, which she has been playing all the way back to 2006 The Runaway Bride, which was the like debut of Donna Noble. Then we have Bernard Cribbins, the late great Bernard Cribbins as Wilfred Mott here, reprising Wilfred Mott, which he started all the way back in 2007's Voyage of the Damned. However, because they hadn't made the decision yet to tie Wilf into the Donna family, in that he's credited as Stan, because he's just the random guy that like they come down, find on Earth while the space Titanic is crashing, and it wasn't until the debut and kind of and the Donna Noble companion season they were like, we liked working with him so much, we're gonna bring him back. And he's no longer Stan, now he's part of Donna's family, because there's also the originally more of his stuff would have gone to the actor who played Donna's father in like the Runaway Bride episode and stuff, but sadly he passed away before they could really get too deep into shooting that season, so I kind of reworked Wilf into that character instead. But Wilf, Bernard Cribbins also was the voice of the Wombles, which I believe is a big UK animated or puppet thing from the 70s, I think. He's also done a lot of other UK voice work. And also, fun fact, he was a companion to the non-canon Peter Cushing Doctor in the 1966 Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD, one of the couple like Doctor Who movies that exist outside of the larger space and time canon of the Doctor. Our unit crew, we have the debut of Ruth Madley as Shirley Bingham, previously been in shows like The Rook, as well as I'm sure many other UK things. Gemma Redgrave reprises her role as Kate Lethbridge Stewart. It's only like the 10th time she's shown up. It just feels like she's been around so much longer, but she debuted as Kate Lethbridge Stewart since in The Power of Three back in 2012. With the slow invasion of the cubes. And of course, her character has a lineage going back to original Who with the Commandant Stewart, whatever. I don't remember what his...
Commodore?
Lieutenant. Lieutenant? I don't know.
Lieutenant. It is Lieutenant, yeah.
Stewart, or Lethbridge Stewart. Old running buddy / ally of the Doctor's in his Earthbound Third Doctor days and stuff like that. She was also in the meme-ified hit from the last week or so, The Beekeeper. She's in that movie apparently. We have Bonnie Langford as a returning Melanie Bush. Mel being the penultimate companion of Old Who, or classic Doctor Who, one of the Seventh Doctor's companions. Mel from 1986 to 1987. And then outside of that, she's also done a lot of EastEnders. And she also made a return in The Power of the Doctor, which I believe was the Jodie Whittaker's final episode. A whole bunch of old doctors and companions kind of pop up in that one.
Yeah, because she also has the
she's in the companion support group in that episode.
Yeah, she's also that also is an episode. That's an awesome episode because I believe that if I'm remembering it correctly, that's the episode where Jodie Whittaker's doctor ends up at quote unquote the crossroads, basically the precipice, and is confronted, which shout out to, I freaking love, whose doctor was it? That it was, I think it was the 8th Doctor who was not in the garb of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And then she goes, why aren't you in it? And there always has to be one rebel.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. It's so good.
And our baddies for the, I do have one other category that we'll get to in here in a sec. But our baddies, we have the Meep, portrayed physically by Cecily Fay, who I wanted to give some credit to. She is a stunt performer going all the way back to projects in 2004, including stuff like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Prometheus, Prometheus and Snow White and the Huntsman. And we have the voice of the Meep being Miriam Margolyes, who was the nurse back in the Leonardo DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. She's also in James and the Giant Peach, and probably most notable to a lot of fans as Professor Sprout in the Harry Potter films. She's also in the recent Sandman series.
Yeah, she is. She's awesome.
And of course, we have the iconic Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker in The Giggle, going all the way back to stuff like Doogie Howser, How I Met Your Mother, and a series of unfortunate events, among many other projects over the years.
And the character going back all the way to the first Doctor.
Yeah.
It's so, oh my God.
Yeah. I think I have some trivia on that in a little bit. The last little branch of characters I have is the Church on Ruby Sunday crew. Shout out to Davina McCall as Davina McCall, a UK presenter on many a show, a la your game show host or reality show host and stuff like that, including a show called Long Lost Family that does kind of what she's doing in this episode. I think I have. I have a little bit of trivia on her, but I'll save it for the trivia section. We have the mysterious Mrs. Flood, played by Anita Dobson, who is a actress best known for a long run on EastEnders. We have Michelle Greenidge as Carla Sunday, with credits going back to 2009, including It's a Sin, but she's also been in some Western centric things like Cruella and Venom: Let There Be Carnage. And then Angela Winter as Cherry Sunday, with credits going back to 1981, including EastEnders, and she was in Last Christmas with Amelia Clark and Henry, Crazy Rich Asians guy.
Yeah, trying to remember.
Yeah, that guy a few years back, but yeah,
super handsome guy.
Yeah. Some diving into some trivia. In the Star Beast episode, as we touched on, this marks Russell T Davis's return to the show since Series 4's The End of Time Part 2, which was David Tennant's final episode before returning in The Day of the Doctor a few years later. As we alluded to, this episode adapts the comic strip Doctor Who and the Star Beast. This is the second time it's been adapted, as Big Finish Productions also adapted it as an audio drama 4 years previously, with Tom Baker as the Doctor in that iteration of it. Wild Blue Yonder, we have the final appearance of Bernard Cribbins. More scenes were written for his character of Wilf, but his short scene at the end of that second episode was everything he was able to film prior to his health taking a turn and him being unable to return and finish the little run. But it was a nice little scene seeing him pop up, especially since they do the
the
fake out in
Oh,
the first episode,
so
and it
good.
was one of those like I knew the actor had passed away
Yeah,
going
that's
into it,
same.
so I was like, oh, they're using this to justify and give the character a send off kind of thing. But yeah, they almost infamously came out like immediately after the episode basically first aired, being like, hey, this was all he was able to do with us, so don't expect him to be back for the next episode. And it's like, spoilers, but okay.
Fair.
I mean, I guess thanks for preparing us for that. And it is a beautiful little scene that they get back together. And then the last little bit of trivia here: the TARDIS HADS hostile action displacement system teleport works properly this time, unlike when the 11th Doctor had to chase it down in Cold War. I don't know which series it was, but the episode where they go onto a submarine in the Cold War.
That's such a good episode.
Clara,
oh my gosh.
And the Martian lizard people.
Martian lizard people and
the Ice Warriors of Mars.
Ice Warriors of Mars. But then it's like the hungry like the wolf.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out, man, it has what's his name from Game of Thrones?
Davros.
Davos in Game of Thrones is the Soviet captain.
Sorry, Davros being a Doctor Who thing, and Davos being the
Game of Thrones. But yeah, no, he's so good at it because then he breaks out into, oh my gosh, it's such a good episode. Like, love it.
Then some trivia for the Giggle here. Neil Patrick Harris, who of course a accomplished amateur magician, performed all the card tricks of the Toymaker himself. This episode marks the return of the Celestial Toymaker for the first time in 57 years. So yes, very much going back to the like history and celebrating the first Doctor's kind of era of stuff. That was a very key element of Russell T Davis's return here, since this was a 60th anniversary celebration. The 10th Doctor's original last words, or the 10th Doctor's last words, "I don't want to go," at the end of time part 2. And here the 14th Doctor's last words are appropriately enough Allons-y, or were expected to be Allons-y, before By Generation happens, which is of course French for let's go, being basically the antithesis of his send-offs. That was a fun little analog there. The broadcast of The Dummy's Head by inventor John Logie Baird is entirely factual.
Yes.
And it was the first image ever transmitted through television. Russell T. Davis stated that By Generation affected the Doctor's entire timeline. So now every regeneration since 1966 has an alternative outcome where the Doctor bigenerates instead, causing the Whoniverse to split into its own multiple timelines. And realistically, what this means is, hey, now we can bring Doctors back and just kind of wave it away with bigeneration rather than say, this is why they look so old now. So that's kind of what they're how they're justifying that, and also playing with, of course, multiverse being the hot thing all these days.
Yep. I like that though, because before because when the 14th Doctor showed back up, it's like we already kind of knew that the Doctor could take on old faces because the reappearance of I believe it was Tom Baker in
the curator.
The curator, as the curator of the museum, where he was guarding we ended up finding out he was guarding Gallifrey. There's something, but I love the idea that, oh, actually no, that's still that Doctor. There's just I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like that's a nice little hand wavy way of getting around, like, in the future, like we don't have to worry about that. Nobody has to future proof that because they won't be around anymore. Because like it's a great way to get around that, and it opens things up for just a lot more fun, and also makes it so like technically the Doctor can be at any place at any time anyway. So yeah.
But now we have this like in universe canon of like, hey, if they do bring back Tom Baker now for an adventure, you can just be like, no, that is the 4th Doctor. He just bigenerated at one point, and so that's why this version is so much older than the one that turned into Peter Davidson.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'll just be honest, as stupid as it is, this is Doctor Who. Like,
sure,
stupid is as stupid does, and stupid is as Doctor Who.
I mean, I feel like bigeneration is no different than Meta Crisis Doctor that respawned from his hand having been cut off at the beginning of his generative cycle kind of thing. It's like, all right, yeah, this for sure, fine.
Or because I
mean, realistically, the thing it leaves me most happy about is that it gave us a scene with David Tennant and Ncuti Gatwa as opposed to the stock and trade. Last Doctor goes and the new Doctor arrives and they don't get to interact.
Yep. But we also got an awesome moment where because they bi-generated, they also split clothes, which was so good.
Yeah. Then diving into Trivia 4, The Church on Ruby Road. This is actually Davina McCall's second appearance on the show. And the first time she appears on screen, because she did previously voice an android version of herself called Davina Droid back in the first series episode, Bad Wolf. Back in it's the one where they're like up on the space station and have all of the like the Weakest Link spinoff and the Big Brother spinoff kind of thing.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
She is a Davina Droid in that and
that's fun.
And I think specifically is related to the Big Brother stuff, and basically says like, you have to leave the house now, kind of / get killed or whatever it was. Yes, this is her first time appearing on screen. We have the Doctor mentions he learned to escape from handcuffs from Harry Houdini. While not seen on screen, Harry Houdini has met multiple incarnations of the Doctor in expanded media. He met the Fifth Doctor in the audiobook Smoke and Mirrors, the Sixth Doctor in Harry Houdini's War, and an episode of Doctor Who The Monthly Adventures. The 11th Doctor in the short story Houdini and the Space Cuckoos, and the 12th Doctor in the comic strip Theater of the Mind. So just some fun Harry Houdini lore with the Doctor over the years. That's what I have in terms of trivia. Cam, I figure let's just talk through kind of episode by episode. What did you think of the Star Beast?
I loved it. It was great. Spoilers, I love all of them. But I love this one especially because the Meep is such a good turn. It's classic Doctor Who. You see these menacing aliens, and then you have this cutesy alien, and then it turns out the cutesy alien is a genocidal maniac. Like classic twist, wonderful. We get a reintroduction of Donna and her family, where Donna's mom knows what's going on, and was like, what are you doing here?
You said the last time we saw Donna as a character, it was very much like, if she remembers you, that information will be overwhelming and it will explode her brain and she will die. So like, you have kept your distance for 15 years because of that. Why are you here? What's going on?
I like how it's just like, coincidentally they see each other in the street.
Yeah.
And he realizes, wait, her brain didn't explode. What's going on?
Well, it's very much like she has to remember him.
Yeah.
The fact that she just sees this bloke, no big deal.
Well, the mom specifically freaks out, says, you said if she sees you ever again, she'll die. And she sees you, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, perfectly understandable. And also, like, that entire fake out with Wolf is just like, or Wilf is fantastic, where it's like, oh, I loved him so much. What are you talking about? He's still alive. He's in a retirement home. He's like 90 something. Great. You have
he just can't do stairs anymore.
Yeah.
So there's no point in keeping him here. Yeah.
Rose is fantastic. What an amazing addition. Immediately, like, deftly opening up that because like when I saw Rose, I was just like, oh, okay. Like she had a daughter. Nice. And then you get like that entire plot that like just is beautifully like revealed in such a critically important way of showing like where this young woman is at and what she's dealing with. And immediately you're like, I want to put my arms around this child and protect her for all the world, just like from the get-go. And then like, you're like, okay, and then her dad is just like, I have the best girl. I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm surrounded by the most wonderful women in the world. And it's just,
I love they pay off because when the 10th Doctor is doing his like farewell tour, he gives a wedding gift of a winning lottery ticket to Donna. So I love that, like,
what does she do?
She gave it all away.
They bought the house and then she gave it away.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. And it's like that. And he's so confused because she gave it away. Like Donna Noble gave it away.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful, like, because then when she
I also love like in the cab, the name drop of Nerys, who Donna was always crapping on, but she was always at the weddings and stuff. I love that little bit of you're like, oh yeah, I heard about it through Neris kind of thing.
Yep.
She's talking to Neris again, hey, or whatever.
Yeah, so good. Oh my god, it's so good. Just the reintroduction of the Noble family.
Mm-hmm.
I am like Donna Noble being like people were like, I don't really want to see her and David Tennant get together, and it's like no, they just become best friends.
Yeah,
and it's him being united with his best friend. That is such a wonderful thing because he has been missing a best friend for such a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a companion, but like a true friend, somebody who actually knows him. And it's great to see that happen. Donna's such a great character. Cause she's just the fucking worst, but she's also the best. And it's like, hell's yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do I say that as somebody who's kind of a Donna Noble person? Absolutely. Like 100%. But
well, I think especially going back to like the conversation around like the Doctor and Rose, like obviously we had the Doctor and Rose and then the Doctor and Martha, where Martha is pining after the Doctor, but the Doctor is pining after Rose, who he lost to an alternate dimension that he can't reach in or whatever. And so it's like the Doctor and Donna relationship just being like pure friends or
just
antagonistic
platonic
buddies and stuff like that. I was like, give me more of this. I don't need like this romantic tension between the Doctor and the companions. So yeah, it's and they were just such a buddy great like duo. David Tennant and Catherine Tate have wonderful chemistry together.
Such
obviously.
great chemistry.
I mean, I mentioned in both of their kind of like other credits, DuckTales. I love that DuckTales played into that and cast David Tennant as Scrooge and cast Catherine Tate as Magica Dispel.
Absolutely perfect.
The arch nemesis.
Just perfect casting. It's so great just to see them together again. And this episode, like everything from the Meep to the unit guys getting taken over, and just everything top to bottom, beginning to end, is perfect Doctor Who.
The introduction of Shirley and like immediately just being like completely competent, having a cool, weapon in her wheelchair that she can use, but also like owning that, hey, yeah, I can't get up the stairs, so this is on you, buddy.
Like, hey, like it's just right up this way, ma'am. And then her just like being like, what the F am I supposed to do, man?
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, so elevators over that way. It's just such a great, like, there is such a way of talking about these otherwise, pointed issues that if not everything's handled with such a deft hand that it never feels obtuse or pandering or anything. It's real issues being treated realistically the way real people who live with them do.
And I haven't rewatched it, so maybe I think maybe a rewatch will make it like less standouty, but the meta crisis that was, the reason Donna can't remember is because this will break her brain. The end of that being that Donna and Rose, they shared it. I think it could have been fine that, because they share it among the two of them, that's why it's not going to destroy them or anything. The fact that they make a pointed thing of like, you, a male presenting doctor, can't think of the thing we can think of to do, of just let it go. Like, that was a beat where I was like, I feel like that was a little too much of a pointed commentary that they're trying to make. And maybe a rewatch wouldn't like jump out at me as much, but like
it's a bit odd phrasing.
I was excited and happy for like especially like the binary non-binary
that was such good
payoff to that. I thought that was such a great creative continuation of like Donna's last metacrisis things 15 years ago or whatever it was. That like, that's a really cool way that part of her just passed on into Rose, and binary non-binary unlocks it among them both. So I love the trans approach and the NB approach of this episode, and like the emphasis that gets pointed. I just don't like Rose like getting very like aggressive at the Doctor, of being like, because you who was just a female doctor hours ago or whatever, you could never have thought to do this. And it's like, no, she could have for the last few years, probably could have thought to do it if that's really how it, pans out. If
I
you're
just
trying
think
to
it
split
was
it in that manner.
one thing. I think that it's just not. I think that's probably the one thing that's like, it's just poorly worded.
Yeah.
It's just really poorly worded. You could have been like, you as this omnipotent super being that's been around for thousands of years haven't even thought about this.
Exactly. The Doctor overlooks simple solutions all the time. It could have just been like, no, we just decided to let it go.
Yeah.
Oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Like it could have just been that or something like that.
Yeah, I think.
But it's the like, you as a male presenting doctor could never have thought of this solution. It's like,
I feel like that was reworked and reworded from like, you as a man.
Yeah.
I think that's where I kind of think like it maybe the origin of that like phrasing was, and then they tried to change it to make it compatible.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work. As somebody who works in social media copy, like writing copy all the time, you like, this doesn't really work. I'll change this one bit. And then you read through it again and you realize, it doesn't make sense anymore. Like, I think it feels more like that than anything else.
Yep.
But other than that, I think everything was like,
that's literally my only like gripe of this. Then Donna just being like, all right, let's pop off for one more adventure kind of thing. Like, excellent. Yep.
I'm running away with a man. Aren't you jealous of any man? Absolutely. Him? No. Just such a good, like, what do you mean not me? Like, such a great commentary on, like, once again, firmly establishing they have one of the best marriages in Who. He's wonderful. It's just all fantastic. I love it so much. And it's such a great, like, bringing something back that, like, I didn't even realize I missed.
Then we get into Wild Blue Yonder. A pretty much two-hander bottle episode for David Tennant and Catherine Tate. That's not true.
There was the horse skeleton woman.
I mean, yeah, there is a CGI other character, but no, it's these two actors just gobbling up the screen for about 50 minutes until they come back and get a nice little reunion with Wilf. I really like this. And these are like, these kinds of episodes often end up being a lot of my favorites. The like more introspective or just smaller, obviously, like New Who has had many an episode that is like kind of either the Dr. Light episodes like Blink or Turn Left or something like that, or you have just like Heaven Sent with Peter Capaldi being like just a tour de force in terms of like holding an episode by himself pretty much thing. And this, it is very much like, okay, Donna is Donna again. And so you can just have a classic 10th Doctor and Donna episode with this. And, the two of them explaining, the catching up with one another. And I love that, like, the creature here, even has echoes of like the midnight creature that could kind of like, take over, like starts mimicking you, then kind of matches you, and then starts like being you before you can be you kind of stuff. I love kind of that flavor of the villain here that is just like, oh, I didn't get the arms right.
So good.
And that's, we get into those kinds of like, that's where the deformities or that's where the grotesque monsters and stuff are.
For me, I love the just like meta concept of when you're out in where they're like the universe hasn't gotten yet. Such a cool idea. And the idea that we heard the echo, we see the light and it's so far away. And now that we want it so badly. And it's like, it makes total sense. It's conceptual, like conceptually it's brilliant as far as like bringing like a very like nondescript menace to the Doctor and Donna and the kind of like greater danger that exists. How like the trick of how to beat them. But I also love these
the very slow countdown, which makes sense for why the TARDIS got here and they were on a count of 10 in a countdown. So of course the TARDIS has to bounce. Sure, that 10 count is still going to take quite a while over the course of the episode, but yeah.
I think, but one of my favorite things about it is it's the first time Tennant has to, like, his Doctor confronts the flux.
Yeah.
And confronts
confronts the flux, confronts the timeless childness.
Yeah, the timeless childness. I like all of it. All of that is just like brought up. It's also like we'll get to it when we talk about Church on Ruby Road. There's an awesome parallel to all of that, but I just love that there's that moment where he breaks in the vents. And that's the first time it's not just weariness. There's deep trauma that is surfacing for him. And it is palpable throughout this episode as he's seeing himself in this monster. And like, Tennant's Time Lord Supremus, like very famously has gone on borderline villainous monologues in his what's the term for, like, I forgot, it's like master something, or like, anyway, megalomania, that's it. Like in these deep megalomania moments of Tennant's classic Doctor, and as the 10th Doctor, Time Lord Supremus, all of that, it is a wonderful moment to see the inverse of this deeply vulnerable version of that same Doctor. The 14th being this like, just this incredible. It's truly incredible. I'm just such a massive fan of this episode.
It was the Time Lord Victorious.
Yeah. Thank you.
That he kind of leads into his downfall specials back then. I think this episode for me also helps stand out as like, this isn't the 10th Doctor. This is very clearly the 14th Doctor who has gone through all of the things of the last Doctors. I love that. I don't remember if it was in this episode or not, but so what have you been up to since I've been gone? Oh, I was, I don't remember what he says for like when he was Matt Smith, but he's like, I was Scottish, then I was a woman for a little while, kind of thing.
Yep. I wore a fez.
Yeah, wore a fez, was Scottish, and this very much is like a Doctor who has seen a lot more than even he had, and has gone through the ups and downs of all of those other Doctors. Obviously, in the Giggle next, we'll see him kind of having to struggle with all the companions that he's lost in the years since he had this face. But for me, a lot of this, like, I love like all the psychological stuff that they kind of examine and grapple with kind of throughout. I love the fake out kind of end of like grabbing the wrong Donna, who arguably has like the right answer of like, why is Mrs. Beans, funny or whatever. It just is kind of thing. Is like, all right, yep, that's you're my Donna, versus the real one trying to like overthink it in that moment or whatever. But for me, like the certainly the heart of this episode, I think, comes in the final bit. They have the references to Wilf earlier of like, he's going to be there waiting for me, he'll wait weeks kind of thing. And we pop back and sure enough, there he is. And the beauty on Bernard Cribben's face, given that like Wilf was so intimately tied to the 10th Doctor's, the end of that face, and him being the man who knocks 4 times kind of thing, leading to 10's kind of end, him saying like that face, that beautiful face, it is like, oh yeah, he never would have thought he would even get to see that face again because the Doctor changes and whatnot. So the fact that like he pops out and David Tennant is just like pure bubble to see Wilf again.
So happy.
Such a beautiful like tear up moment, kind of a lovely reunion sequence between them.
I mean, Wilf literally has one of the most classic reaction gifs of all time of like crying at something, and it's him saying goodbye to the Doctor. Getting to see the 10th's face again does wonders like for him as well. Like you can just tell. Yeah. You can tell. It's such a fantastic moment. God, I love it.
And then I shout it, like it's one of those things, like as soon as they mention in the episode, like 3 years ago, the airlock opened, I was like, oh, that wasn't something coming in. That was something going out. And so yeah, shout out to the horse creature, which then also begs the question of like, well, why did the horse creature decompose? Like, why is it just a skeleton out there? But maybe that's just what that creature looks like
Entirely
in its
possible.
natural state.
Entirely possible.
This is spooky alien stuff. So yeah, shout outs to the Wild Blue Yonder. Any final thoughts on that before we move on to the Giggle?
No, I think it's just fantastic. Continues to show that this new era of the Doctor really knows its shit. It's nice that there's no like new like leadership handicap coming in. It's coming straight out of the gate, full pistons running.
Then we get the Giggle with just an impeccable performance from Neil Patrick Harris, as I think was probably to be expected. Anybody that like knows his work, seeing him pop up dancing a la, cabaret or whatever, it's just like, yep, he's just going to chew the scenery. Like, he is the perfect kind of performer, especially after like a series of unfortunate events, to be this character, to be the toy maker, to bounce from accent to accent, to just constantly playing games with the people as well as the Doctor, as well as just the world. And shout out to an incredible performance of Spice Up Your Life. So much fun.
Gosh.
While also being like
horrifying.
Doctor Who horrifying of like, hey, turn them into balls. I'm sorry, they're dead. and just having to like move on to the next thing.
And like one of the balls being the guy's face and screaming in pain. And it's just like, what happened to them? I'm sorry, they're dead. Just no, they're dead. Yep. It's like, this is who the toy maker is. He is like, this is why he existed in like the idea of basically a conceptual god popping up and playing with mankind like their toys. And of course, he's so angry at the Doctor for keeping humanity away from him because he's so in love. Like the entire time of like, we'll go off, we'll play together. And it's just like, no, I like playing with humanity more.
Yeah. Humanity plays so many games with themselves. Of course I have to play this game with them.
It's
kind of thing.
It makes so much sense. And it's also like the first Doctor and a couple of the other Doctors, they have these kind of like conceptual enemies that exist outside of time and space that they work to prevent from making it to our existence and our reality. And this is, I think, the first time we get to see why. And it's something that is, as for people who don't know, like the toy maker is in prose and like the written stuff, like the short stories and whatnot. The toy maker goes back all the way to a written one that was done as kind of like a backstory, because when the toy maker and the Doctor meet in the first time with the first Doctor, they act like they already know each other. And at that time, it's like because the first Doctor is like giving exposition to the people. But in the prose, they reveal that the Doctor and two of his like school companions, while experimenting, found their way into the toy maker's realm, and he lost his two friends to the toy maker and made his way back to Gallifrey. And so it's like a very big, like, so the toy maker is, if you look at the deeper lore, is extremely triggering for so when he says, Donna, go back to the TARDIS, run back to the TARDIS. And she's like, you never tell me that. It's because this is literally the creature from the Doctor's nightmares.
Yeah, it's so good. It's also a callback to the first Doctor telling his companions to do that when he encounters the toy maker in the original appearance kind of thing.
And it just adds to it more and more, the mythos of the toy maker just being just, I love it so much. And Neil Patrick Harris, that moment where he goes, because I think her Doctor has figured out who I am. And it's just such a perfect delivery of playful, like overboard German. Like every one of his accents is too much. Yeah, it's all too much because he's playing a game. He's having fun. And it's so great to see somebody like Neil Patrick Harris, who is kind of like he can do it all. He can, and he's like, I can't. I watched the behind the scenes. He's like, I can't dance. It's gonna be okay. And everybody else is like, it's stupid. I hate that he says he can't dance. He dances phenomenally, and he is like,
he's a Broadway performer.
Yeah, he's a Broadway performer. He was in Kinky Boots. Goddammit. Actually, no, he wasn't in Kinky Boots. He was in
Rent. He was in Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Hedwig and the Angry
Which
Inch.
admittedly Hedwig is more of a like rock cabaret kind of thing.
Sure,
so there
yeah.
isn't like a ton of dancing in there, but
Yeah, no. He's just fantastic.
You've done enough Tonys.
Yeah.
We've seen you can dance. You've hosted enough of those with the opening numbers. We know you can dance, NPH.
Yeah. And he's just like, yeah, and then we see this, and it's this incredibly like quick cut, like jump cuts to jump cuts of these amazing moments. My favorite is when he pops up behind what's her name, and he has the phone. He's like on the phone, and he's like, it's so good. It's so good. But I think my favorite part is when he murders the people by turning them into bouncy balls.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and he's fantastic. He's so fantastic. The when you first see him and he's dancing in the street, when everybody's like lashing out at each other, and the doctor's just like, what is this person? And then oh gosh, it's so good. It's so perfect.
Shout out to the tease for the Master, being the Master having lost a game and now existing in the Toymaker's gold tooth. He gets left behind. We obviously get the nice little like red fingernail picking it up kind of thing, a la the John Sims era of the Master stuff. But yeah, shout out to like the little puppet show going on to like. And here's what happened to Amy Pond, and here's what happened to Clara, and here's what happened to Bill. And
that's all right.
Yeah, well, that's all right then. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, so much fun. So wickedly sinister that like I'm incredibly sad that it seems like this was a one-off, because I would love to see him as like, pop back in and be like a little bit more of a recurring villain, just because he is so much. He's such a delight.
But I think that's going to be the kicker, is that you always want more.
Yeah,
because that's how the Toymaker's always been. People like anytime they're like, we're bringing back a classic villain, everybody's first guess is Toymaker.
That's how it's always been. This was his second on-screen appearance in 60 years. Like, he's very much like, well, they haven't brought him back yet, so maybe they'll bring him back. And that's, I think, more what it is than anything else.
It really is. Like, every other villain, even Omega, who's only in a couple of episodes and appearances, is in things more than the Toymaker.
I mean, people I think are way more clamoring to get the Valyard back from like,
Oh my gosh, the Valyard! I haven't thought about the Valyard in years.
Yeah. But I think is more tied to the Doctor directly than the Toymaker was. The Toymaker, if they had never returned, I don't think Doctor Who would have like really been like lacking in
absolutely
in options and stuff. But yeah,
no, the Valyard, for people who don't know, Valyard is quote unquote the final regeneration of the Doctor, who's clamoring for more regenerations.
Yeah, which is also has weird extra context in a post 13 world kind of thing.
A post 13 world in combination with a post bi-generation world.
Yeah,
like there's the Valyard. I don't know if the Valyard hits in any way now, other than it just being a cool concept. I don't think the Valyard works anymore.
Any final thoughts there on the Giggle before we move on? I love the unit as Avengers Tower, basically.
So good.
There's a lot of fun there. I love the idea that Kate Lethbridge Stewart, which I think is a point that comes up in The Power of the Doctor. Again, I haven't watched that episode, but I believe it's kind of referenced that like it serves her to recruit from former companions of the Doctor because of their experience. And so I love that, she's got Mel on staff there.
Yep.
She offers Donna a quick job, and Donna negotiates and gets a good salary out of it. Know your worth, people. Cam.
Shut it.
So yeah, I think that was a fun little tease. Shout out to the Vlinks. That like is just kind of one of those like introduced. We're not really going to dive into it. That's just a thing that's out there. I imagine they'll come back to it. There's been in trailer stuff, like there's a shot of new Rose in unit headquarters. So seemingly we'll be going back there with Shudigatwa's Doctor. Oh yeah, I guess that's the other big thing. Let's talk about the bi-generation and just getting the spinoff there of Shudigatwa's got his TARDIS and is going to go off on his adventures, and David Tennant 14th gets to just like rest and
Heal.
Yeah. I like that was such a beautiful kind of like, hey, you don't ever pause. You definitely need therapy. So you deal with that. I'll go keep saving the world, but you deal with that for us, please.
Yeah. We've never really taken a moment to heal. So I'm going to go off and have fun adventures. You please rest and cope and seek therapy.
Yeah. Just such a delight, and again, such a fun way to handle regeneration. Yeah, especially the like, all right, well, yeah, like typically when the doctor regenerates, the new doctor just appears in their clothes. And so this one, well, we've biogenerated, so we each get half clothes. I love how absurd it is that they never call attention to the fact that Shudigat was not wearing pants the rest of the episode.
That's fair.
It is just like that's wild. But I love how he gets to use like remnant of the toy maker's powers to just big old cartoon hammer a new TARDIS out. This one being wheelchair accessible. So shout out to that. Not only for if they ever want to bring Shirley along as a companion, but also if they ever want to bring K9 back into the fold.
Yep.
He can actually roll up into the TARDIS now instead of we cut away from shots and then magically he's in there. And just the like the little childlike glee of the whole thing just being like, we're going to just play a game of catch. The two of us against you.
The very first game. Yeah. Ball.
And then them just doing a whole, and there's some fun like behind the scenes stuff on this, but like them doing the most dramatic games of catch and shots of catch that they can. And I love the little bit of like, hey, I'm on your side. Sorry. Still getting used to things. Just a delight there and a fun way to do for a, big anniversary thing, a multi-doctor episode a little bit. Since we get Shooty for a good chunk of the end of the episode, instead of it just being a celebration of Tennant. That said, I hope they don't go back to the well with the fact that the 14th Doctor is out there just doing stuff. I hope, like, bring him back for, big specials, big multi-Doctor things, absolutely. But, like, don't have him be on, like, other adventures. I hope they don't do a spin-off that is, like, the Doctor and Donna, stuff. Because I feel like that especially would rob the opportunity from Shutigatwa away.
I agree.
Of kind of just getting hit. Like, already the fact that David Tennant's still out there is a little bit of like diminishing the new Doctor's importance. So I hope they don't like rely on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the idea that I think that's just the idea of just whether it's we don't need two Doctors at the same time. I love the idea that we can go back. We might have like a one-off side episode where it is focusing on them. I would love some more mundanity from, I think seeing the Doctor in mundane situations is some of my favorite things in the world because he's so tickled pink.
I just rewatched the Lodger episode.
There you go.
The first James Corden episode where he just has to be a bloke. Then there's also, as I alluded to it earlier, the Power of Three episode where he just kind of has to sit on Earth for a year and he's just does not care for it.
Has to stay in one place. Like, I love the idea also of like, let's have it's okay for us to have one-off episodes with him or with the other Doctors. Let's do that. That's fine. But do not make Doctor Who a Doctor anthology series. Let's keep it focused on our current Doctor and let's go on these new adventures. I'm very excited for them. Like everything from it. I was so excited for the Christmas special. You and I finally watched it and it was, we watched it separately, but technically you watched like a quarter of it with me because you stopped by while I was watching it. But it's honestly, it's such a great moment. Can you pronounce his name correctly for me real quick?
Shooty
Gatwa?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was the case, but I didn't want to like butcher it.
Yep.
Ncuti is such a brilliant addition to being the new Doctor, and showing it off by being in his skivvies.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love, I love that he comes out fully formed.
Yes.
Like there have been a lot of doctors, Tennant famously like comes out and then is basically like in a coma for most of his first, episode, his first special kind of thing. And then he finally comes to for some big moments at the end. So I love that this one like didn't deal with that. Like Matt Smith, obviously, like I gotta figure out what this body likes taste wise now and those kinds of things. This one just coming out and just immediately being like, all right, I'm here. I'm ready to play games. I'm ready to knock it out of the park. Great.
Also, we'll get into it in the Christmas episode in just a moment.
There, as we're talking about it, I'm finding, not going into spoilers or anything, but I think there's a fun parallel to Marvel Spider-Man 2 here
yes.
of like, the new Doctor basically being like, rest, I got this, we'll be okay, like you can take a break every now and then now. I'll go out and save the time and space, you just heal up from the millennia, or if you want to count the like billions of years that Peter Capaldi spent in the torture dial or whatever it was, confession dial, in Heaven Sent. Like, just recover yourself, man. Take care of yourself. You've got some trauma to process and work through, and maybe see a doctor. So I love that. And then we get into the Church on Ruby Road, kind of the kickoff of the new era, the new season, the new Doctor and his companion. Go ahead and dive into your thoughts on this one, Cam.
Yeah, I freaking love this episode. It's so good. Once like bringing up some like quote unquote fantasy things with the goblins was fun. But I think one of my favorite things about it is the idea of found family and what does family mean.
Sure.
As we kind of talked a little bit about earlier, the Timeless Child. For people who don't know, the Timeless Child is a deep revelation about the Doctor's origins, that kind of pull a lot of things were kind of like in the aether of like fan theory, like long time. We're talking like 25 plus years, like 30, 40 years of fan theories about about certain figures in Gallifrey's history and mythology to kind of like come full circle. And getting that paid off into such a wonderful little moment of why the Doctor likes orphans, why the Doctor finds there's something very unique about coming into a moment and seeing kind of this foster family, this foster / adopted family, and helping keep this family together, and helping make sure that this family has the opportunity to be whole, because we see what happens when they're not together. Mm-hmm. How miserable. Not Cherry. It's
the mom, or the Carla and Cherry.
Carla
are the two.
Carla. How awful Carla's life is when she's not a mom.
Mm-hmm. When she's just doing it for the occasional paycheck.
Yeah. When it comes down to like she found her purpose in being a mother to these motherless children. And for Ruby to have that as like a base point. So it's not basically finding who her parents are is like bonus parents. It's not they're my real parents.
Yeah,
it's
I love that she's very much in her kind of like introduction, super exposition dump of here's who I am as a character. Enjoy. It is the like, so I was left on a church, but I've had a great life. Like my mom is the best. And
we live with my grandma now, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not looking for this out of some deep-seated trauma of like I need this to be a resolved thing in my life. I'm perfectly happy with where my life has come and gone, but this is a nagging kind of mystery in my life. And if you guys can solve that for me, great.
But yes, it's the way she handles her disappointment at no matches to her DNA. Is kind of like a okay, like,
well, we tried.
We gave it our best shot, but at the same time, it's like the full support she has of her, like, hey, I'm so sorry this other baby's now come up. And not like I'm being replaced or displaced in my own family. Like, where do I belong? Like, I was kind of expecting to go in that direction. Flip opposite. Just like, this is all about found family. It is all about what it means to choose the people you want to surround yourself with, and also choose the attitude you have about things being happening to you. And to top it all off, I love how it's so focused on Ruby, and we just kind of get to see Shooty's doctor kind of like pop in and around, but also I just love that they already pulled up some like Eighth Doctor stuff with the kind of like able to kind of like see things a little bit like into a person's like kind of little bit of their personal future, with the ring in the pocket thing with the policeman. It's so good. It's so good to have that. Also, just like, he brings such an amazing energy to it. It's a brand new energy.
Him, like, the joy and like living lifeness of him in the club is something I've not seen from any of the doctors before this.
Nope. As he twirls in a skirt, it's just, it feels iconic. It feels spectacular. To top it all off, his doctor outfit with the jacket and everything, he's so cool in the way that he's just kind of like, 13th Doctor was a little bit like 14th Doctor, of course, back to the suits and the chucks. 13th Doctor is in the jumper and is kind of like wearing quote unquote kid clothes. Peter Capaldi's Doctor just being kind of like in like more like sophisticated attire. Like you haven't seen somebody in just like a cool jacket.
But also Peter Capaldi's Doctor, for a time, rocking sunglasses and a guitar.
Yeah, that is true.
Just electric guitar.
Yep, that is true. He did do that. Just a weird dad rock phase of the Doctor, which was cool. But it's been a while since you just saw a Doctor just wear a cool leather jacket and just like wear some cool like regular clothes. And it was because he doesn't need to flourish himself. He doesn't need to I like that he doesn't need to set himself apart in style, because obviously he's the first Black Doctor. Like, he doesn't need to set himself apart with like some colorful flair. Instead, it's just basic clothing that he accentuates in a way because he's just naturally so charismatic. And to top it off, I love his sonic screwdriver. It is this cool, it feels very like weirdly old, like you'd imagine like an old sick 50s or 60s, some like busted appliance that somebody like put together with duct tape and they spray painted it silver. And it's now like the super gun from like an old, like shitty sci-fi movie. And it feels like that, but it also feels like new and high tech and modern in a really cool way.
Yeah. I love the Sonic. It has less screwdrivery vibes, and that's largely just because it's not a long cylinder like all of the other ones have been. But I can very easily and quickly get past that kind of thing. I do love, and it's like, obviously it's not anything that will ever really come up on the show, but I love that in kind of the deep dive behind the scenes, or kind of like, closer look at it, they've highlighted that it has a Rwandan proverb written in Gallifreyan on there. That translates to the sharpness of the tongue defeats the sharpness of the warrior.
So good.
Which is just perfect for the Doctor.
It's the Doctor. It's so good.
Yeah. There's also I'll be curious like how the Sonic kind of pans out over the course, because there was also the in the Star Beast episode where we get this new ability where the Sonic can just create like bulletproof shields now. It's like, oh, that's a new thing that this hasn't done before, but okay, sure. I'm
trying to think of all the Doctor's people around the Doctor who have died due to like bullet fire or laser blast, thinking over the years, and he's had the entire time to build like invisible force or like invincible force fields.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe it is just like it had an upgrade somewhere along the line. There was a time, especially I've taken the opportunity to go back and start like rewatching a lot of, as I said, a lot of Smith episodes and a lot of Tennant episodes, and there's like constantly the like it doesn't work on wood, and then obviously by the 50th anniversary they figure out a way to make it work on wood, using it over time kind of thing. So
that's so good.
So yeah, I imagine there's, you know, plenty of little tweaks and upgrades, and it's always been much like the psychic paper, like the MacGuffin thing. Oh, shout out to during the early, the first time Tennant shows it up, that says you're the mistress of something. Oh, catch up. Love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the psychic paper and the sonic screwdriver have always just been like the MacGuffin tools to, you know, what we need to get him we need to write him out of a corner, so the Sonic can do this. But yeah, to your point, Russell T Davies has talked about in interviews the fact that this episode leans more into fantasy goblins,
yes,
compared to the long lineage of like sci-fi stuff. And this isn't trying to be a sci-fi goblin thing, it is fantasy goblins. He kind of alludes to as like a residual effect of the toy maker coming into this
yes.
world. Like there is like blurring of the lines between what is fantasy, what is science fiction, all those kinds of things.
What a great way to kind of like break down that door, right? Goblins are a classic fantasy trope. They bring them in, they stole a baby. It's classic fantasy stuff. And to top it all off, it's not like they have a high-tech ship. Their ship is made with ropes that speak a language. And he's like, just give me a second, I'm translating the rope. And it's just, because I just love it. I just love all of that.
I love his indignancy when she says, like, so wait, they're time travelers? No, they're not time travelers. Time travelers. Like, they're time thieves or something like that. Yeah, like
they steal time. They don't. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. God, he's so good. She's great too. I freaking love her. She's wonderful. That sharpness, that kind of brashness of young youth, and like,
I mean, it very much is like Russell T Davies doing Rose again. And like some of the trivia is like, the street, I think, that she's like leaving the club on is like, they pass by at one point the same shop that Rose originally worked on. Maybe that was like an intentional choice, or maybe it was just they found the same filming location or used the same filming location just by coincidence. I don't know, but
I think it had to have been like, is that location, like, oh, this location's open. Oh, that's probably where that's where we shot this. Oh, well, that's perfect.
Yeah, there's another like deep cut Easter egg kind of thing on the in the alternate timeline where Ruby wasn't adopted. One of the few things on the fridge is like a pizza parlor thing, and it's like a pizza place that was referenced in like in the first episodes or the first series kind of thing. It's like, shout out to the production team on these. Shout out to the song. It's just a ton of fun.
The Goblin song?
Yeah, the Goblin song. Shout out to Shooty talking about the fact that like, yeah, they put that in script, and I thought at some point they were going to have us like come in and record in the studio, and then we just kind of lip sync it on the day. And then the day came and we hadn't done that, so we just did it live. I
did not know they did that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So much it serves as such a great, like, it's just a fun little bop in and of itself, but it's also a fun, like, immediately. Obviously, the Doctor's going to go along with that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Sure, he'll have fun with it. So the fact that, like, Ruby also immediately, like, jumps in, is like, all right, yeah, I'm along for this. Sure, let's do this. It's like, yep, you are destined to be a companion. If he didn't run off with you after this, it's like, what have the last 60 years been teaching us?
Yep.
So yeah, I love how this sets up and establishes, like, their relationship with one another. I'm a little less interested, honestly, in like the mystery of who Ruby's mother is.
Yeah.
Because, like, obviously Russell T Davies, going back to Bad Wolf, like,
he's a mystery box guy.
It's going to be the season long arc. At least with his mystery boxes, is like, he maps it out over the course of the series, and we're going to get a resolution on it. Unlike maybe some of Moffat's stuff, and obviously obviously J.J. Abrams. Not to say like all of Moffat's stuff was bad. Obviously, like,
oh, of course not.
The payoff from like episode 1 of Matt Smith of like the silence will fall coming all those years later and stuff was great. But yeah, like, Russell T Davies typically was like, okay, this is the there's going to be a lot of like little one-off adventures, and in each one of them we're going to have like little, hint or tease of what the like overarching, arc is.
To the point where even Moffat brought Bad Wolf back for the 50th and like brought that even full
Bad
circle.
Wolf Girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Such a good, like, students of each, like, working off of each other. It's good stuff. But I do think Moffat definitely, like, there's definitely some like people who feel very like weird about some of like the more Moffat prophecy-esque stuff about like the fall of the Doctor and whatnot.
I think that's been. I think some of that starts with the Russell T Davies era. Again, I'm speaking from a little bit of a place of ignorance because I don't have a good grasp of the classic Who, but from what I've like seen other videos and kind of people talk about, it is like the new Who very much made in kind of starting us off post Time War, where this Doctor is the last of his kind. He has become a little bit the center of the universe, as opposed to a traveling vagabond Ronin kind of like comes into a town, helps it, and moves on.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But a lot of new Who has very much been like everything revolves around the Doctor, especially, it definitely gets, especially in the Tennant era, or the Matt Smith era and the Moffat era, with like the Pandorica and all that stuff. But at the same time, like I'm okay with it. Like it's fun having our protagonist be, not only be able to like jump anywhere in the universe, but also have that matter that wherever he goes, like the story matters, kind of thing.
I think also it speaks to what was one of my favorite episodes, which was the Two Doctors with Peter Capaldi, where you had like that, very much that like clash of like
and
like
David Bradley as William Hartnell.
Yes, so good. But really pointing out like how do you involve yourself on such a deep personal level, like all this stuff about like breaking the rules and all these things, and it's so. And Peter Capaldi's Doctor just being like, so like, oh, I can't believe I was this lame.
Also, shout out, I don't know if you saw this. They did that like that special that was that featured David Bradley as William Hartnell. It wasn't like Doctor Who, but it was like the making of Doctor Who kind of thing. But it ended with that fun little cameo of like Matt Smith. I don't know if you saw, they've updated it to have now it feature a cameo of Ncuti Gatwa.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
They basically like framed it intentionally so that like they can update it with the times and with rebroadcasts and stuff to just insert the newest Doctor in there when the time comes. So yeah, they put him in. And infamously, in that shot in the original iteration, Matt Smith is standing like in an impossible spot because he's basically like standing in the console of the TARDIS. And with the Ncuti Gatwa cameo, they correctly placed him behind the console in the shot. So yeah, shout out to that fun little nugget of stuff out there. But yeah, Church on Ruby Road. I love the idea that these goblins kind of like take joy from coincidence and all that, and that's like where they get their power, and they like create the bad luck. I absolutely love the like, the setup at the beginning of Davina McCall being like killed by a Christmas tree star, and the end of the episode being like, oh, I forgot to do something, and Ncuti Gatwa goes in and like stops it, and saves her.
Perfectly done. It's so good.
Yep.
Just awesome. It's such a top to bottom, like, what a wonderful Christmas episode. It's great always seeing the Doctor in like some of these like one-offs, these specials, like do something against an enemy that's not pretty typical.
Shout out to while I also thought this, I will also give a hat tip to the people over at Who Culture who, in their kind of like recaps of the episode, shouted out the fact that the Goblin King gets hot fuzzed.
Yes.
At the end of the episode, a great way to even that, like the gadget of the gloves is a fun, like, hey, yeah, the Doctor can't have things other than the Sonic. The Sonic, sure, could have probably just done something to like reverse the gravity on things, but no, he has these gloves that he can equip and use, and they have like a limited battery life or whatever, and he can use them to make gravity super light or make it super heavy and just pull the ship down.
So good.
Yeah, in a very fun payoff way. And yeah, I'll be very curious, especially to see what I'm less curious about the mystery of Ruby's mother, and I'm more curious about the mystery of Mrs. Flood. Very directly looking at the camera and being like, "What? You've never
Yes.
seen a TARDIS before?" After earlier in the episode,
Never having seen a TARDIS before.
seemingly never having seen a TARDIS before, and being very grumpy about that. So maybe something in the Doctor going back in time and changing things, change something with Mrs. Flood. Who knows? Yeah, which is also an interesting thing because it is like it can. I initially reviewed it before I thought of the fact that she kind of is being like, what is this doing here, and stuff. It was more I was thinking, well, of course, like everybody in 2023 London should know what a TARDIS is, given the number of times it has been broadcast on TV.
It was literally taken by a helicopter a couple episodes ago.
Like we've seen news footage in universe of the big blue box being carried across over the Thames and stuff like that. So so I originally I was like, oh, that's a weird thing, and of course she can come back and say like, haven't you seen a TARDIS before? Mm-hmm. There's the bigger mystery is, who are you talking to? Why are you breaking the fourth wall, kind of thing. But then when coupled with the like, she didn't seem to know what it was earlier, was she putting on airs, or who knows? But yeah, I'm excited to see where Doctor Who goes from here, and I love that I'll get to see it right away on Disney Plus. We can do more D Plus shows about it when the time comes.
Yeah, expect more Who stuff on that D Plus show going forward.
Yeah. In the meantime, I've been having just a ton of fun going back and rewatching. I wanted to say, during the Tennant episodes, I obviously, the fact that like we see pretty much all of the 14th Doctor's run, theoretically, there have been allusions to like other adventures that happen between his transformation and when he lands.
Yes.
And sees Donna. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they'll ever really delve into that.
I think that's just more opportunity for like proses, radio dramas, that sort of thing.
But one of the very interesting things would be if the 14th Doctor meets River Song, because when I went back and rewatched Silence in the Library, like that two-parter, and she very much is like, you're the Doctor. I know you, but you're younger than I've ever seen. Your eyes are younger than I've ever seen. And so it'd be very interesting. If she met this version of the same face.
She met the 14th.
But an older version of that same face.
It said the 10th.
Yeah.
Also give us more River Song. I love River Song so much.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, she had a perfect send-off with Peter Capaldi. It's understandable you never bring her back because of how perfect that was. Mm-hmm. My gosh. How long is an evening on this planet? 5 years.
I think it's 26 years.
Oh, yeah, 26 years. Whatever, however many years.
Yeah.
It's so deeply romantic. It's so great.
Even that is like a lovely callback to like her final speech in the Silence of the Library two-parter of like, you showed up with a new haircut and in a nice suit, and you took me for an evening on such and such, and I should have known. And so like they had more time there than the entirety of the rest of the series altogether. But gosh,
that entire episode, I just love it so much, because there's her entire speech about what it means to love the Doctor is still one of my favorite monologues of all time.
Yeah.
And then just like, sweetie.
Yeah. Sweetie. I am here.
So good. Oh, it's so good. That makes me want to rewatch that episode. It's so good.
Yep. Shout out to Doctor Who being on Disney Plus now. I will be curious if at some point, like if the HBO deal ends, if they get the whole back catalog of New Who and also great. Classic Who onto Disney Plus. If not, there is like a Whoniverse kind of option out there for people that do want that all in one place. You might need a VPN to pretend you're in UK for it. I don't know. But yeah, interesting to have the new stuff moving forward on Disney Plus. So I'll be curious if they ever bring the old stuff over there, or if I'll just need to keep my HBO subscription so I can pop into old Doctor Who for every now and then.
Let me make it very clear. You are not being a proper Doctor Who fan unless you have to go through 6 different services to try to watch all of Doctor Who.
Fair.
that is, I like. Maybe they'll figure it out in the future. I don't know. It is not a. It is a rite of passage to have to go through 6 different things to find Doctor Who.
That is the big like thing that has a lot of like UK fans excited, is that like in the UK they do have all of them in one place.
Yeah.
So shout out to that. But yeah, all of these, you know, Western licensing deals and stuff not happening anytime soon. But also shout out, speaking of Disney Plus, shout out to the upgrade in the budget for these episodes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Big upgrade in the budget.
Yeah.
You do not have as great of a toy maker episode. The Giggle would not be as good as it is without the kind of budget they got from Disney.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward also there's no way the CG the goblins would have looked that good.
Well, so even that, like the goblins and the Meep are a great mix of like practical and CG.
Yes.
So there's like classic old Doctor Who of like, we've got people in suits, but we've got more money for better animatronic suits. And we've got money to get 8, 10, 12 goblins that we can, you know, film doing a whole bunch of things. And then we can, you know, multiply them in post via CGI.
Also, you have that practical Goblin King,
yeah,
who's just this massive puppet, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, shout outs to that. And also shout out, I guess the big Disney note for the Church on Ruby Road episode was the scene that you referenced of the doctor kind of talking with the policeman about, like, she says yes, she'll say yes because you didn't wait. She's going to say yes because the sales start on Tuesday and you didn't wait. So that's why she's going to say yes to you. You were that excited. Of course she's going to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that. And that was a note from the Disney people to basically be like, hey, be great if we could get the doctor in here doing the doctor thing a little sooner in the episode.
That's a great note. And on top of that, it also plays into the Eighth Doctor's ability to like empathetically like feel out people and know a little bit of the future.
I don't think that was what they
was it their intention?
Doing?
No, but half the things that the Who fandom have put together are purely by the Who fandom, not official things anyway.
Yeah. That's just Cameron doing that Cameron thing of reading way too much into a line of dialogue.
Not just me. If you want to know who's also just as crazy about lore, the Whovians out there, the Who fans, the Hoonatics, they're out there.
Sure.
We're out there rocking it.
All right. Well, that is going to do it. So let's dive into the report card. We grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give these episodes, Cam?
Oh, A+. A+ is across the board. They're fantastic. Such a great return to form for like just solid 100% great Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say return to form, but it is quintessential.
Yeah.
Fantastic Doctor Who.
I do think the Chibnall era is much maligned by a lot of Who fans. So getting Russell T Davies kind of back steering the ship, I think there is a return to form of sorts. I don't think that's, I think unfortunately there will be like a lot of people will like malign the Jodie Whittaker era because it was the Chibnall era unfairly.
And then of course you just have the blatant misogynist.
Yeah. And of course, yeah, just absolute horrible misogyny bullshit. But I thought she was great in what she was given. I just didn't like what she was given a lot of the time.
I think I think also like, I don't ever know if Chibnall, I never really felt like Chibnall 100% slipped into what it meant to be a Doctor Who showrunner.
Yeah.
I feel like there was always
Chibnall, sorry. That's me. I've been saying the wrong thing. Chris Chibnall.
Yeah.
I was portmanteauing his name and calling him Chibnall. Yeah, Chris Chibnall.
Chris Chibnall. I don't know if he ever felt perfect, but I did think that his casting was ideal. His casting for his master was fantastic. His casting of Jodie Whittaker being the Doctor was fantastic. There's a lot of like choices that he made that I love, but I just feel like a lot of times the execution wasn't there on that level. And it's a shame, but at the same time, like, as this is just how I feel about being, when you're a Doctor Who fan, be grateful for the great that you get. Cause it could always be the 60s era, people in like really like, remember the Dalek is literally an upside down trash can with a plunger attached to it. Like never forget that's where we get the most menacing, maniacal, evil race of space aliens of all time. They're literally upside down trash cans with plungers attached to them. Be grateful for the great.
Doctor Who's silly.
Yeah, Doctor Who's just silly. Be grateful for the great, and if stuff doesn't muster up to it, just move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, A pluses for me as well. I had a great time watching these, and they've been fun, even as like, like I've watched Wild Blue Yonder a couple times just to like enjoy the back and forth and the banter between them. I've watched Church on Ruby Road a couple times. They are, especially, if you, and it is weird because there is like a 15-year nostalgia for the Dr. Donna relationship.
Yeah.
That is exciting and fun to see, popped back in for a few years. And it's that thing that we've talked about. I talked a lot about when I did that Bond show with Logan, in terms of like who should be the next Bond after Daniel Craig here. And I love the idea because in a fandom like that, with Bond specifically, like Daniel Craig's era, largely floating on Casino Royale and Skyfall, and maybe No Time to Die as well, is a high point, and it's going to be hard for anybody to follow that. Much like it was hard for Timothy Dalton to follow the Roger Moore era, much like it was impossible for what's his butt to follow Sean Connery. So the next Bond would benefit from just being like a one-off thing. So I love that when you go from one of the most historic doctors in Jodie Whittaker being a woman in the role for the first time, rather than going straight from that into Ncuti Gatwa, the first black man to be the Doctor.
Yeah.
There was like a little buffer of, okay, let's give you a fun little like classic David Tennant 3-parter, and then Ncuti will get to go off on his own adventures. And so there, I love that they kind of found a way to maybe get the best of both worlds in that regard. And also just kind of do a nice little fresh reset and kind of set the tone for here's what Doctor Who's going to look like again moving forward now that Russell T Davies is back kind of at the head of the ship and all that stuff. So shout out to that. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this, pulling from basically the recommendations across these episodes. Whichever special you're on, the first 3 recommendations are going to be the other 3 Doctor Who specials, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, they all recommend Doctor Who, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, The Orville, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Loki as your other options. I think Loki, the best fit among that bunch, as we talked about in our Loki episode, where Tom Hiddleston has some very Doctor Who timey-wimey kind of moments, obviously,
especially in that last episode. Yeah.
It wasn't until going back and rewatching Heaven Sent that I was like, oh, Loki, the final episode of the first part of the final episode of Loki is just him doing Heaven Sent. Of like, all right, I'm just gonna redo this same moment over and over and over again for millions of years or whatever it was.
Yep.
Shout out to that. Extracurriculars, you watching anything else on Disney Plus, Cam?
As of right now, no, but I will be starting Echo pretty soon. So that's next on my list of things to start watching.
Yeah, I've watched the first episode of Echo. I'm a couple episodes behind on Percy Jackson at this point.
Oh, I haven't started Percy Jackson yet. I still got to watch that too.
You finished What If, right?
Yes, I did finish What If.
Maybe What If will be next week's episode.
Probably.
I think that makes sense. What If season 2.
As we kind of play catch up on all the new Disney Plus stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's that. And then, like I said, away from Disney Plus, I've just been watching a lot of Matt Smith, David Tennant era Doctor Who stuff. And also I did hop in and watch Heaven Sent because Peter Capaldi is just great in that episode.
Yep.
So yeah, shout outs to all that fun stuff. That's going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about the 60th anniversary Doctor Who specials. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to, if you haven't caught it yet, we just did Film of the Year for that Nerdy Site show. We sat down with Logan. We all went over our top 10, as Trevor kind of spoiled a little bit earlier. Barbie was our top movie of the year. But if you want to hear why, you want to really get to just enjoy people talking about movies. If you like us, you want to hear us talk about movies, that's probably the best podcast to listen to for a while.
Many of them, or some, I guess not many of them, some of them were discussed on previous episodes of That D Plus Show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Mm-hmm. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. In addition to, the Film of the Year, Movie of the Year episode, you can go check out thatnerdysite.com for some of our other lists and stuff. Obviously, we've done our couple big That Nerdy Site show episodes since coming back after the holiday break were Game of the Year and then Movie of the Year, last couple episodes. In lieu of this show, while this was on hiatus, I did a list of like my favorite That D Plus shows from last year that you can go check out as well if you want to have a trip down memory lane in some of our That D Plus shows of last year. What other best of lists have I done? My gaming list is up there. My favorite platinums list is up there.
His favorite Legos list.
My favorite Lego set list is up there. I still need to do my best movies top 10 and my actual plays that I still want to write up.
I still need to finish writing up. I need to do my honorary mentions and kind of punch up my film one, and then I still need to just finish. I have my top 10 numbered and everything for top anime of the year, but for my top anime of the year, but also need to just do some very good writing for it. It's been, there's just other stuff that's been happening.
There you go.
So,
and then, next week on this show, we'll be doing, sounds like What If Season 2.
Yep.
That kind of dropped over the holiday break. And next week on That Nerdy Site show, which will be episode 201. I believe this is episode 201 of this show. Yeah, because Ernest was our last episode of this was episode 200.
Yep.
Hope you enjoyed episode 201 of this episode of this show. Episode 201 of our That Nerdy Site show podcast next week will be kind of a catch-all other best of 2023 things that we loved. We don't watch enough normal TV to do a top 10 shows of 2023, but we'll talk about some of our favorite stuff. Will Doctor Who make an appearance? Probably.
Yeah.
Go check out that when the time comes on Monday. Thank you for joining us. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or as I said, go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. If you like what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other. Class dismissed. I don't want to go.
Allons-y.